Listen to me closely, because what I'm about to share with you is not an accident. The fact that you're here right now, reading these words, watching this video at this exact moment in your life, this is not coincidence. This is the universe responding to something you've been asking for, perhaps without even realizing you've been asking. You've been sending out a signal, a prayer, a desperate wish, maybe in the quiet moments before sleep or in the midst of your struggles, and right now, in this very moment, the answer is arriving. Your breakthrough isn't somewhere far off in the distant future. It's not hiding behind years of more struggle and waiting. It's closer than your next breath. It's closer than your own skin. And if you'll stay with me, I'm going to show you exactly why everything you've been through, every disappointment, every closed door, every moment you felt forgotten, has been preparing you for what's about to unfold. I know you've been tired. I know you've been wondering if things will ever change. You've tried so hard, haven't you? You've done the work, you've been patient, you've kept going even when every fiber of your being wanted to give up, and still, you look around and wonder where the evidence is. Where's the proof that your life is actually moving forward? I see you. I understand that exhaustion in your soul. But what if I told you that every single moment of waiting has been working for you, not against you? What if the universe has been orchestrating something so perfectly aligned with who you really are that it required this exact timing, this exact preparation, this exact version of you that exists right now? You are not here by mistake. The divine intelligence that orchestrates the stars and the seasons, that transforms seeds into forests and potential into reality, that same intelligence has been working tirelessly in the invisible realm of your life. And right now, things are about to become visible. The breakthrough you've been praying for is already done in the spiritual realm. We're just waiting for it to materialize in your physical experience. And that materialization is imminent. Stay with me, because everything is about to make sense. Now, I want you to understand something fundamental about how this universe actually operates, because most people have been taught backwards. They've been taught that you work hard, you struggle, you push, and maybe, if you're lucky, if you're good enough, if you sacrifice enough, then perhaps the universe will reward you. This is completely inverted from the truth. Let me tell you how it really works. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful creative force you will ever encounter. It doesn't judge, it doesn't argue, it doesn't question whether you deserve something or not. It simply accepts what you impress upon it and goes to work making it real. It's like the soil of the earth. The soil doesn't ask if you deserve a harvest. It doesn't judge whether your seeds are worthy. You plant a seed, and the soil does what soil does. It nourishes, it grows, it produces. Your subconscious mind works exactly the same way. Whatever you plant there, whatever you consistently feel and believe and accept as true, your subconscious will manifest into your external world. But here's where most people get lost. They think they're planting seeds of abundance and success, but if you actually examined what they're feeling, what they're dwelling on throughout their day, what they're saying to themselves in the quiet moments, you'd find they're planting entirely different seeds. Seeds of doubt, seeds of unworthiness, seeds of fear and limitation. And then they wonder why their garden looks the way it does. The universe sent you here today because it's time for you to understand this principle at a level deeper than intellectual knowledge. You need to feel it in your bones. You need to recognize that every single thing in your life right now, every circumstance, every relationship, every limitation, and every blessing began as an impression in your subconscious mind. Your outer world is a perfect mirror of your inner convictions. Not your wishes, not your hopes, not what you tell people you want, your convictions. The things you actually believe to be true about yourself, about life, about what's possible for someone like you. And here's the beautiful, liberating, absolutely revolutionary truth that changes everything once you really grasp it. You can change these convictions. You can replant your inner garden. You can impress new ideas, new beliefs, new assumptions upon your subconscious mind, and it will accept them just as readily as it accepted the old ones. It doesn't care if the old belief system has been there for 30 years. It doesn't care if it came from your parents or your culture or your past failures. The moment you begin consistently impressing a new belief, your subconscious begins working to make that new belief your reality. This is why your breakthrough is close. Because you're here right now. Which means at some level, your consciousness is ready to receive something new. The old patterns are loosening their grip. The universe has orchestrated circumstances to bring you to this exact moment of receptivity, and what you do with this moment will determine what happens next in your life. I spent years studying the mind, understanding how consciousness works, why some people seem to effortlessly create beautiful lives, while others struggle with the same problems year after year. And what I discovered is that there's a law operating, as precise and reliable as the law of gravity. It's the law of assumption. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you assume to be true. You don't get what you desire. You get what you believe you are worthy of receiving. You don't manifest your wishes. You manifest your dominant mental habits. Let me tell you what this means practically. If you walk through life assuming that things are difficult for you, that you have to struggle, that success comes easily to others but requires tremendous effort from you, your subconscious will make sure that assumption becomes your experience. It will filter your perception so you notice all the evidence that confirms your assumption. It will influence your decisions so you unconsciously choose the harder path. It will affect your energy and demeanor so you repel opportunities that could come easily, not because the universe is punishing you. Not because you're cursed or unlucky, simply because your subconscious is doing exactly what it's designed to do, proving your assumptions correct. But flip this around and you'll see the incredible power you possess. If you assume that life supports you, that opportunities flow to you naturally, that you are worthy of good things, that solutions appear exactly when you need them, your subconscious will work day and night to make that assumption your reality. It will heighten your awareness to notice opportunities. It will give you ideas and hunches that lead to beneficial connections. It will cause you to be in the right place at the right time. Again and again, people will call this luck. You'll know it's law. Right now, your breakthrough is assembling itself. All the pieces are coming together. The people who need to think of you are thinking of you. The doors that need to open are unlocking. The timing that needs to align is aligning. But you must do your part. You must begin living from the assumption that this is true, not hoping it's true, not wishing it's true. Assuming it's already done and simply hasn't manifested in physical form yet. This is what I mean when I say your breakthrough is closer than you think. It's not that some magical event is about to happen to you from outside. It's that you're about to shift something inside, and that internal shift will reorganize everything external. The breakthrough is the moment you stop living from your current circumstances and start living from your desired end. The moment you stop being a person who hopes things will change and become a person who knows they already have. This shift can happen in an instant. It can happen right now as you hear these words. And when it happens, your entire trajectory changes. Let me share something with you that happened to me many years ago, because I want you to understand that I'm not speaking to you from theory. I'm speaking from lived experience. There was a time in my life when I had nothing. I mean truly nothing. I was alone. I was broke. I had no prospects, no connections, nothing that the world would point to and say, yes, this man has potential. And in those dark nights, I could have accepted the verdict of my circumstances. I could have said, this is just my lot in life. This is what I deserve. This is all I'm capable of. But something in me refused to accept that verdict. Something deeper than my conscious mind knew there was more, and I began to do what I'm teaching you now. Every night before sleep, I would enter into a drowsy, relaxed state. And in that state, where the conscious mind's defenses are down and the subconscious is most receptive, I would imagine my life as I wanted it to be. Not as a fantasy, not as a distant hope, but as a present reality. I would feel what it would feel like to be the man I wanted to become. I would hear the conversations I would have. I would sense the respect and abundance surrounding me. I did this night after night after night, impressing this desired reality onto my subconscious mind. And here's what happened. At first, nothing changed externally. My circumstances remained the same lack, the same limitation. But something shifted internally. I began to carry myself differently. I began to think differently. Ideas came to me that hadn't occurred to me before. I felt guided to be in certain places, to speak to certain people, to take certain actions that didn't make logical sense but felt right. And slowly, then suddenly, my external world began to rearrange itself to match the internal image I had been faithfully impressing upon my subconscious. This wasn't magic. This wasn't luck. This was law. The same law that's operating in your life right now, whether you're aware of it or not. The difference is that now you're becoming aware. Now you can use this law deliberately instead of accidentally. Now you can become the gardener of your own consciousness, instead of letting random seeds blow in on the wind of circumstances and other people's opinions. Your breakthrough is the moment you realize that you're not at the mercy of the world. The world is responding to you, always. In every moment. You are not a leaf blown about by the winds of fate. You are a creator, equipped with the most powerful force in the universe, your imagination wedded to feeling. When you imagine something and feel it real, you set in motion forces that must bring that thing into manifestation. This is not belief. This is not positive thinking. This is universal law. But I need you to understand something crucial. This doesn't mean you just sit and visualize and do nothing. That's a misunderstanding that keeps a lot of people stuck. What happens is this. When you properly impress your subconscious mind with a clear image of your desired end, your subconscious begins to guide you. It gives you impulses, intuitions, ideas. It opens your eyes to opportunities you would have walked right past before. It gives you courage to take actions you would have been too afraid to take. It arranges coincidences and synchronicities. Your job is to remain faithful to the vision and follow the guidance that comes. Sometimes that guidance will make perfect sense. Sometimes it will seem irrational. Do it anyway. Trust the process. Your subconscious has access to information your conscious mind doesn't. It knows connections you're not aware of. It sees possibilities you can't logically see yet. When you get a hunch, an urge, a feeling that you should call someone or go somewhere or try something, that's your subconscious guiding you toward your desired end. Follow it. This is why I say your breakthrough is close. Because you've been putting in the time, you've been sending out the desire, and now you're learning how to align yourself with its manifestation. All that's required now is faith and assumption. Faith that the law is working. Assumption that what you desire already exists in the unseen realm and is making its way to you. Think about this. Before a building exists physically, it exists in the mind of an architect. Before a symphony exists audibly, it exists in the consciousness of a composer. Before any creation appears in the physical world, it first exists in the invisible realm of imagination. Your desired life exists right now in that invisible realm. It's complete, it's perfect, it's waiting. Your job is not to create it. Your job is to accept it, assume it's yours, and let it materialize. Most people do the opposite. They look at their current reality and use it as evidence for what they should imagine. They say, I'll believe it when I see it, but the law works in reverse. You'll see it when you believe it. You must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled before the wish fulfills. You must think from the end, not of the end. You must be the person who has it, not the person who wants it. This is a completely different way of moving through the world. When you want something, you're in a state of lack. You're focused on its absence. You're sending out a signal that says, I don't have this. And the universe, responding to your signal, continues to give you the experience of not having it. But when you assume you already are the person who has it, when you feel grateful for it before it arrives, when you make decisions from that place, you're sending out a completely different signal. And the universe must respond differently. I want you to do something right now. Think of the thing you've been worrying about most. Got it? Now, here's what I want you to understand. That worry is a prayer. It's a very powerful prayer for what you don't want. Every time you replay that fear, every time you imagine the worst-case scenario, you're not protecting yourself. You're programming yourself. Your subconscious doesn't judge whether the thought is good or bad. It simply accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it and works tirelessly to make it real. I've seen people worry themselves into the exact situations they feared. A man constantly worried about losing his job. He would imagine his boss calling him in, see himself packing his desk, feel the shame of unemployment. Within 6 months, he was let go. Not because he was incompetent, but because his worry made him anxious, defensive, and ineffective. He literally manifested his fear through the law of his own consciousness. But here's the beautiful part. The same law that can work against you can work magnificently for you. When you consciously choose your thoughts, when you deliberately impress your subconscious with images of health, success, and abundance, The same creative power that manifested your fears now manifests your desires. Let me give you a technique that changed everything for one of my students. She had been struggling with money for years. Bills piling up, creditors calling, constant stress. I told her, before you sleep tonight, feel the relief of financial freedom. Don't visualize the money, feel the feeling of having it. That night, instead of worrying about her bank account, she lay in bed and asked herself, how would I feel if all my financial problems were solved right now? She felt the relief flooding through her body, the peace, the gratitude. She fell asleep in that feeling. Within 2 weeks, an unexpected opportunity came. Within 2 months, her income had doubled. She didn't win the lottery. She didn't inherit money. The universe simply rearranged circumstances to match her inner state. That's the cosmic joke that most people never understand. You're not manipulating reality. You're not bending the universe to your will through sheer force. You're becoming the vibrational match to what already exists in the infinite field of possibility. Think about water seeking its level. You don't have to convince water to flow downward. You don't have to persuade it with affirmations. It simply moves, according to its nature. Your consciousness works the same way. When you become prosperity, prosperity flows to you as naturally as water flows downhill. I've watched people torture themselves trying to manifest. They grip tighter, they affirm harder, they visualize more intensely, and nothing comes. You know why? Because desperation has a frequency, and it's the exact opposite of having. When you're desperate for money, you're broadcasting "I don't have money" into every cell of your being. The universe doesn't hear your words, it responds to your state. Let me give you another example. I knew a man, a writer, who spent years trying to get published. He sent out manuscript after manuscript, rejection after rejection. He was obsessed with it. He thought about it constantly. He visualized his book in stores. He affirmed he was a published author. Nothing worked. Then something shifted. He stopped caring about publication. Not in a bitter, defeated way, but genuinely, he fell in love with writing itself. He wrote because the words wanted to come through him. He stopped checking his email every 5 minutes for responses from agents. He stopped defining himself by whether he was published or unpublished. Within 3 months, a publisher reached out to him. An editor had found an old submission in a pile and was intrigued. The book was published. It became a modest success. What changed? Not his talent, not his words. His consciousness changed. He stopped vibrating at the frequency of lack and desperation. He started vibrating at the frequency of someone who was already fulfilled by his creative expression. This is what I mean when I say you must accept your desire as already fulfilled in consciousness. Not as a trick, not as a mental game you're playing, but as an actual shift in your identity. And here's what most people get wrong. They think this shift happens through effort, through willpower, through constantly reminding yourself of who you want to be. But that's exhausting. That's like trying to hold your breath indefinitely. The real shift happens when you stop trying to become someone and start recognizing who you already are beneath all the conditioning. Let me explain it this way. Right now, you have ideas about yourself, stories you've been told, labels you've accepted, limitations you've agreed to carry. I'm not good with money. I'm socially awkward. I'm not the type of person who succeeds at that. And here's the thing, none of those statements are facts. They're interpretations. They're conclusions you drew from past experiences, and then you made them permanent. But they're not permanent. They never were. The person you think you are is just a collection of habitual thoughts. And habits can change. So when I say shift your identity, I don't mean create a fake persona. I mean stop defending the old story. Stop reinforcing it. Stop repeating it. Stop gathering evidence for it. Because every time you say, I'm just not good at this, you're not describing reality, you're creating it. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't fact check. It just accepts what you consistently claim as true and builds your experience around it. So the question becomes, what are you claiming? Not what do you want, not what you hope for. What are you actually consistently claiming about yourself when no one else is listening? Because that's what's running the show. And if you want different results, you need a different claim. Not someday, not after you achieve the thing. Now, you start treating yourself as the person who already has what you want. You start making decisions from that place. You start speaking from that place. And I know it feels awkward at first. It feels like you're pretending. Good. Let it feel awkward. Do it anyway. Because that awkwardness? That's just your old identity resisting. It's the part of you that's comfortable with lack, with struggle, with limitation. And comfort isn't your goal here. Transformation is. So you lean into the discomfort. You keep affirming the new identity even when it doesn't feel natural yet. And then one day, you'll notice something. It stopped feeling like pretending. It stopped feeling like pretending because it became who you are. This is the threshold most people never cross. They affirm for a week, maybe two. They feel a little shift, maybe a glimmer of hope, and then they stop. They think, well, I tried that mental stuff and it kind of worked. And they go right back to their old identity. But you're going to be different. Because you understand something most people don't. The subconscious mind doesn't care about your history. It doesn't care that you failed before, that you came from nothing, that you've been anxious your whole life. It only cares about what you're impressing upon it right now, in this moment, with feeling and repetition. Let me give you a powerful example. I once worked with a woman who had been in debt for over 15 years. Every month, the same cycle. Bills piling up. Collection calls. The sick feeling in her stomach every time she opened her mail. She tried budgeting, side hustles, debt consolidation. Nothing worked. Because none of those things addressed the real problem, which was her self-concept around money. She saw herself as someone who would always struggle financially. It was part of her identity. I'm just bad with money, she'd say. I've never been good at saving. These weren't just casual comments. These were declarations of identity that her subconscious was faithfully manifesting into her reality. So we changed the identity first. Not the budget, not the strategy, the identity. She started affirming every single night before sleep. I am financially abundant. Money flows to me easily and naturally. I am wise with money and it multiplies in my hands. At first it felt ridiculous to her. She'd look at her negative bank balance and think, who am I kidding? But she kept going, every night, with feeling, imagining what it would feel like to check her bank account and see abundance instead of lack. Within 3 months, everything shifted. She got a promotion she hadn't even applied for. An old friend paid back a loan she'd forgotten about. She found herself naturally making better financial decisions without even trying. It wasn't magic, it was identity. When you change who you believe you are, your behavior automatically aligns with that new self-concept. Let me tell you something profound. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what you vividly imagine and what you actually experience. This is not metaphysical speculation. This is neurological fact. When you close your eyes and rehearse yourself as a confident, successful person, your brain creates the same neural pathways as if you were actually living that experience. Athletes have known this for decades. They mentally rehearse their performance, and their muscles respond. Their coordination improves, their results change. But here's where most people go wrong. They imagine success once, maybe twice, and then wonder why nothing changes. That's like planting a seed and digging it up the next day to see if it's growing. Your subconscious mind requires repetition. It requires consistency. It requires emotional conviction. Think of your mind as a garden. For years, you've been planting seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation. Those seeds have grown into thick weeds that choke out everything else. Now you want to plant new seeds of confidence and success. But you can't just scatter them on top of the weeds and hope for the best. You must persistently, daily, with emotional feeling, plant those new seeds until they take root and crowd out the old growth. I worked with a man who had been unemployed for 2 years. He came to me desperate, defeated, convinced the world was against him. I asked him a simple question. Who do you see when you look in the mirror? He said, I see a failure. I see someone nobody wants to hire. There was his problem. Not the economy, not his age, not his qualifications, his self-concept. Every morning he woke up and reinforced the image of himself as unemployable. Every job interview he attended, he carried that image with him like a weight around his neck. And employers sensed it. They felt his lack of self-worth before he even opened his mouth. I gave him one instruction. Every morning and every night, Before sleeping and upon waking, spend 10 minutes seeing himself as employed, not hoping for employment, not wishing for a job, but actually feeling the reality of being a valued, well-compensated professional, feel the satisfaction of meaningful work, hear colleagues respecting his contributions, experience the security of a steady income. This father's mental movie becomes so vivid, so emotionally charged, that his subconscious mind accepts it as reality. And here's where the miracle begins. His entire nervous system starts working to make this vision manifest in the physical world. Within weeks, unexpected opportunities appear. A former colleague mentions a position opening up. His son receives encouragement from an unexpected mentor who sees potential others missed. Doors that seem permanently locked suddenly swing open. This isn't coincidence. This is the law in action. Your subconscious mind, when impressed with a clear mental image backed by feeling, begins to orchestrate circumstances, attract opportunities, and guide you toward actions that align with your vision. It works through you and around you, reshaping your reality from the inside out. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Joseph, I've tried visualization before. I've imagined my goals. Nothing happened. Let me address this directly. Casual daydreaming is not the same as scientific mental work. When most people visualize, they're merely thinking about what they want while simultaneously doubting it's possible. They picture success while feeling their current lack. They imagine wealth, while their dominant feeling is poverty. This creates contradiction, not creation. The technique I'm sharing requires disciplined practice. You must enter a relaxed, receptive state, what we might call the drowsy state just before sleep. In this condition, your conscious mind's critical barriers lower, and your subconscious becomes highly impressionable. In this state, you don't just think about your desire, you live it mentally. You make it so real that your subconscious cannot distinguish between your imagined experience and physical reality. A woman came to one of my lectures who had been struggling with severe arthritis. Medical treatments had provided minimal relief. I taught her this principle, and she began spending 15 minutes each night before sleep, experiencing herself moving freely, without pain, engaging in activities her condition had stolen from her. She imagined gardening, feeling her hands working the soil without stiffness. She felt herself walking her granddaughter to school, her joints flexible and pain-free. Within 6 weeks, her condition began to improve dramatically. The inflammation reduced, her mobility increased, and eventually, she was able to discontinue the medications that had controlled her life for years. Her doctor called it spontaneous remission. But there was nothing spontaneous about it. She had systematically impressed a new pattern upon her subconscious mind, and her body responded accordingly. This is not isolated to physical healing. I've witnessed the same principle transform financial situations that seemed utterly hopeless. A businessman came to me after his company had collapsed. He was drowning in debt, consumed by shame, unable to see any path forward. Every thought was contaminated by failure. He replayed his mistakes endlessly, each mental repetition deepening the groove of defeat in his consciousness. I asked him a simple question: if you were to rebuild, what would success look like? At first, he couldn't answer. His mind had become so conditioned to failure that imagining success felt like a foreign language. But gradually, with practice, he began to construct a mental image of himself, running a thriving enterprise, contributing value, experiencing financial freedom. Each night, he would enter that scene in his imagination. He felt the satisfaction of providing excellent service. He experienced the feeling of paying his debts with ease. He sensed the respect of his peers and the pride of his family. Most importantly, he felt the emotional reality of these experiences as if they were happening now. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but it did happen. Opportunities began appearing that he would have previously missed because his mind was tuned to the frequency of failure. A former client reached out with a new project. A chance conversation led to a partnership. Within 18 months, he had not only recovered but had built something more sustainable than what he'd lost. You see, your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between a real experience and one vividly imagined with emotional intensity. When you consistently impress it with images of health, success, prosperity, and love, It begins to express these patterns through your body, your circumstances, and your relationships. The fundamental principle you must grasp is this: your subconscious mind is always listening, always recording, always responding. It never sleeps. Right now, as you hear these words, it's receiving impressions. The question isn't whether you're programming your subconscious, you are, constantly. The question is, are you doing it deliberately or by default? Most people program their subconscious minds haphazardly, allowing every passing thought, every fearful headline, every negative conversation to sink in and take root. They wonder why their lives seem chaotic, why the same patterns repeat endlessly. But consider the gardener who plants seeds without care thistles alongside roses, weeds mixed with wheat. What kind of harvest can such a person expect? You must become a selective gardener of your mind. This requires vigilance, yes, but not the exhausting kind. It's the gentle, persistent awareness of what you're allowing into the fertile soil of your inner world. When a thought of limitation arises, and it will, you don't fight it. Fighting only gives it energy. Instead, you replace it. Immediately, deliberately, you substitute it with its opposite. If the thought comes, "I'll never have enough money," you calmly, and with feeling affirm, "Money flows to me freely and abundantly from expected and unexpected sources." You feel this statement. You let it resonate through your entire being. This isn't positive thinking for its own sake, it's impression management. You're giving your subconscious mind the blueprint you actually want it to follow. I knew a woman in Dublin who practiced this with remarkable consistency. She was a widow with 3 children, working 2 jobs, barely surviving. Every morning before dawn and every night before sleep, she would spend 10 minutes impressing upon her subconscious mind that divine abundance was hers, that opportunities were constantly opening before her, that she was divinely guided and protected. Within 6 months, she received a completely unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she'd never met. Within a year, she'd started a small business that grew beyond anything she'd imagined. But more importantly, her entire mental and emotional atmosphere had transformed. She radiated a confidence and peace that attracted opportunities and helpful people wherever she went. This wasn't magic. This wasn't luck. This was the precise, mathematical operation of her subconscious mind responding to the new impression she had faithfully and consistently planted within it. You see, your subconscious mind is perpetually creative. It never stops working. Even while your conscious mind sleeps, your subconscious continues its ceaseless activity, working on the patterns and impressions you've given it. The question is never whether it will create, the question is what it will create based on the material you've provided. If you've given it worry, it creates circumstances that validate worry. If you've given it lack, it creates experiences of limitation. If you've given it resentment, it creates relationship difficulties and health challenges. But if you give it images of abundance, health, success, and divine guidance, it creates circumstances that reflect these higher patterns. The woman in Dublin understood something most people miss entirely. Persistence is not about forcing or straining. True persistence is gentle, faithful, consistent repetition. It's like watering a garden. You don't water your garden once and expect a harvest. You water it daily, with patience and confidence, knowing that beneath the surface, invisible processes are working toward manifestation. Many people practice affirmations or visualization for a few days, perhaps even a few weeks, and when they don't see immediate results, they abandon the practice. They're like farmers who plant seeds, and after 3 days of not seeing growth above ground, they dig up the seeds to check if anything's happening. By doing so, they destroy the very process they're hoping to cultivate. The subconscious mind works on a natural timetable that doesn't always align with our conscious desires for instant gratification. Just as pregnancy takes 9 months, just as an oak tree takes decades to reach maturity, the manifestation of your deeply held beliefs follows its own organic timeline. Your job is not to dictate when or how things should happen. Your job is to maintain the mental state, to hold the image, to feel the reality of your wish fulfilled regardless of current circumstances. I've witnessed countless individuals sabotage their own progress by constantly checking for results. They affirm prosperity in the morning, then spend their afternoon worrying about bills. They visualize health before bed, then spend their waking hours obsessing over symptoms. This is mental double-mindedness. and it completely neutralizes the creative power of your subconscious mind. Think of it this way. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't dig it up every few hours to see if it's growing. You water it, you ensure it has sunlight, and you trust the natural process. You have faith that beneath the surface, invisible to your eyes, something miraculous is happening. The seed is breaking open, roots are forming, and life is preparing to emerge. Your consistent mental state is the water and sunlight for your subconscious seeds. The same principle applies to impressing your subconscious mind. Once you've planted the seed through repetition and feeling, your responsibility is to maintain the proper mental environment. This means refusing to entertain contradictory thoughts, declining to engage with limiting conversations, and persistently returning to the state of your wish fulfilled. Here's what persistence actually looks like in practice. Every time doubt arises, you gently redirect your mind back to your affirmation. Every time fear knocks on your door, you answer with faith. Every time circumstances seem to contradict your desire, you remember that circumstances are the outer effects of former inner states, and you're now creating new inner states that will produce different outer effects. Think of persistence not as grinding effort, but as loving constancy. It's like tending a garden. You don't pull up the seeds every day to check if they're growing. You water them, you protect them from weeds, you trust the process. Some days you see no visible change. Some days it might even look like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, invisible forces are at work. Roots are spreading, cells are dividing, life is organizing itself according to the pattern you planted. This is precisely what's happening in your subconscious mind when you persist with your mental imagery and affirmations. You may not see immediate results in your outer world, but I assure you, something profound is happening beneath the surface of your awareness. Your subconscious is reorganizing your beliefs, redirecting your energies, aligning your thoughts, and attracting circumstances that correspond to your new mental pattern. I've worked with people who gave up one day before their demonstration would have appeared. One day. They had done everything right, they had clear vision, emotional feeling, they practiced regularly. But when results didn't come according to their timetable, they abandoned the process. And then they wondered why nothing changed. This is the tragedy of impatience. Your subconscious mind doesn't wear a watch. It doesn't operate on your schedule. It operates according to its own wisdom, which is far greater than your conscious understanding. When you plant a tomato seed, you don't expect tomatoes the next morning. You know there's a gestation period. The same principle applies to mental seeds. There is always a period between planting and harvest. But here's what you must understand. Every moment you persist, every time you return to your affirmation, every visualization you complete, these are not wasted efforts. They are accumulating. They are building momentum. They are creating an irresistible force in your subconscious mind that must eventually manifest in your experience. And when that manifestation comes, you will look back and realize something profound. It was inevitable. Not because of luck, not because of chance, but because you aligned your inner convictions with universal law. You created a mental equivalent first, and the physical reality had no choice but to follow. Now, I want to address something that troubles many people on this journey. They ask me, Dr. Murphy, what if I've tried this before and it didn't work? What if I've affirmed and visualized and nothing changed? And here's what I tell them. You didn't fail. The law didn't fail. What happened is that your conscious affirmation was contradicted by a deeper unconscious belief. Let me explain this carefully, because it's crucial to your success. Your subconscious mind is like a garden with many layers. The surface layer is what you're planting now, with your current thoughts and affirmations. But underneath, there may be old roots, old beliefs that were planted years ago, perhaps in childhood, perhaps through repeated experiences of disappointment or failure. These old beliefs didn't disappear just because you decided to think positively for a few days. They're still there, still active, still sending their own instructions to your subconscious mind. And if these old beliefs are stronger, more emotionally charged, more deeply rooted than your new affirmations, then they will win. They will continue to manifest in your experience. This is why some people affirm abundance while continuing to experience poverty. They're saying one thing consciously, but believing another thing subconsciously. The solution is not to give up. The solution is to go deeper. You must identify these contradictory beliefs. You must bring them into the light of consciousness, examine them, and deliberately replace them with new convictions. How do you do this? By paying attention to your habitual thoughts, especially the ones that arise automatically when you're not monitoring your mind. What do you think about when you're falling asleep? What thoughts occupy your mind during idle moments? These unguarded thoughts reveal your true beliefs, your actual mental diet. If you're affirming prosperity but thinking about bills and debt in your unguarded moments, then debt is what you're really impressing upon your subconscious. Your subconscious doesn't respond to what you say for 5 minutes during meditation. It responds to what you believe consistently throughout your day. This is why people can attend seminars, read books, recite affirmations, and still see no change in their lives. They're working on the surface while their deep-seated beliefs remain untouched. I've watched people spend thousands on courses and coaches, seeking the secret formula that will finally make the law work for them. But there is no secret formula. The secret, if we must call it that, is simply this: sustained feeling. Not fleeting emotion, but sustained conviction. The feeling that what you desire is already yours. Consider the person who wants to heal their body but constantly speaks about their symptoms, who desires wealth but endlessly discusses how expensive everything has become, who longs for love but tells everyone who will listen about their terrible relationships. They're fertilizing the very seeds they claim they want to uproot. Your words are powerful, yes, but only because they generate feeling. And it's the feeling that impresses the subconscious. This is why I always say that you must feel yourself into your desire. Not think about it, analyze it, or figure out how it will happen. Feel it as already accomplished. When you pray, pray with the feeling of answered prayer. When you visualize, visualize with the feeling that it's done. When you affirm, affirm with the conviction that you're describing current reality, not future hope. The future never comes. There is only now, this eternal present moment. And in this present moment, you can choose to feel any way you wish. You can feel wealthy now. You can feel healthy now. You can feel loved now. These feelings, sustained and repeated, become the magnetic force that draws corresponding conditions into your experience. This is not wishful thinking. This is scientific prayer. Wishful thinking is hoping something will happen while secretly believing it won't. Scientific prayer is knowing it's already done in consciousness, therefore it must manifest in form. The invisible always precedes the visible. The subjective always becomes objective. When you pray, you're not trying to get something. You're claiming what already exists in the invisible realm of infinite supply. There's a man who came to me years ago, completely broke, debts piling up, no prospects in sight. He said, "Dr. Murphy, I've been praying for money for months and nothing happens." I asked him how he prayed. He said, "I beg God every night to please send me money because I'm desperate." I explained to him that he was actually praying for poverty. Every time he said those words, he was affirming lack, desperation, scarcity. He was impressing his subconscious with the very condition he wanted to escape. We changed his prayer completely. Instead of begging, I taught him to sit quietly, close his eyes, and feel the reality of financial freedom. Not think about it, feel it. Feel the relief, the confidence, the gratitude of having more than enough. Feel what it's like to pay every bill with ease, to look at his bank statement and smile, to make decisions from abundance rather than fear. I told him, "Before you sleep tonight, assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Don't work at it. Don't strain. Just relax into the naturalness of having what you desire. Let your subconscious accept it as fact." Within 3 weeks, an old business contact reached out about an opportunity he'd completely forgotten about. Within 2 months, his financial situation had completely transformed. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't inherit money. The channels were natural, but the source was his consciousness. This is the difference between superstitious prayer and scientific prayer. Scientific prayer is based on understanding how your mind works. It's based on the principle that your subconscious must express whatever you impress upon it with feeling and conviction. You don't need to visualize every detail. You don't need to force or manipulate. You simply need to capture the feeling of the wish fulfilled and return to it consistently until it becomes natural to you. And when it becomes natural to you, when you no longer have to remind yourself to feel it because you simply do, that's when you know the work is done internally. That's when the subconscious has accepted it fully. You don't wake up every morning trying to convince yourself you have a house, you just know you do. You don't rehearse the feeling of being loved by your family, you just are. The same naturalness must occur with your desire. I've watched people sabotage themselves right at this critical juncture. They do the work, they feel the feelings, they start to sense the shift, and then they panic. They think, it's been 3 days and nothing's happened. Or worse, I felt so good yesterday, but today I feel doubt again, so I must have failed. Let me tell you something crucial. Your emotional state will fluctuate. You're human. But the work isn't ruined by a moment of doubt. What matters is what you return to. Do you return to the assumption of your wish fulfilled, or do you return to the assumption of lack? That choice, made consistently, determines everything. Think of it like tending a garden. You plant seeds, you water them, you give them sunlight, but you don't dig them up every day to check if they're growing. You trust the process. Some days you might feel uncertain, maybe it hasn't rained, maybe the sun was too harsh, but you don't abandon the garden. You keep tending it. You keep returning to the work. Your subconscious mind is the soil, your assumption is the seed, your feeling is the water and sunlight, and your persistence, your refusal to uproot the seed with doubt and contradiction, that's what allows the harvest to come. Now, I know some of you are thinking about timing. When will it manifest? How long does this take? And I understand the question, but it's the wrong question. Time is a construct of the conscious mind. Your subconscious doesn't operate on your calendar, it operates on acceptance. The moment your subconscious fully accepts the new belief as true, the manifestation begins to take form in your outer world. Sometimes it happens quickly within days. Sometimes it unfolds over weeks or months. But here's what I want you to understand. The manifestation is not your concern. Your only job is the inner work. Your only job is to persist in the assumption until it becomes natural. And that's where most people fail. They do the inner work for a day, maybe a week, and then they turn around and check the physical world. They look for evidence. They panic when they don't see movement. And in that panic, they abandon the state. Listen to me carefully. The seed doesn't dig itself up to check if it's growing. It rests in the soil. It trusts the process. And so must you. When you plant an assumption in your subconscious mind, you must leave it alone. You must stop interfering. You must stop doubting. You must stop asking when and how and start living as though it is already done. This is what Neville meant by living in the end. It's not about pretending. It's not about lying to yourself. It's about occupying the state of consciousness that corresponds to your wish fulfilled and remaining there regardless of what your senses report. Your senses will lie to you. They will tell you it's not working. They will show you the old story, the old circumstances, the old limitations. But those are just shadows of past states. They have no power except the power you give them by reacting to them. So what do you do when the doubt comes? When the fear whispers that it's not working, that you're fooling yourself, that nothing is changing? You return to the feeling. You return to the state. You close your eyes, and you feel it again. You hear the congratulations. You feel the relief. You see yourself living in that reality. And you do it again, and again, and again, until it becomes more real to you than the facts. Because here's the truth that will set you free. Facts are not truth. Facts are temporary. Facts are just the outpicturing of old assumptions. Truth is what you assume to be true. Truth is what you persist in feeling. Truth is the state you refuse to leave. You don't need to argue with the world. You don't need to defend your assumption. You don't need to convince anyone that your wish is already fulfilled. You simply live from the end. You walk as the person who already has it. You speak as the one who already is it. When someone asks about your goal, you don't say, I hope, or I'm trying, or maybe someday. You speak from the state of fulfillment. Not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. Because you're not trying to manifest something external. You're simply being faithful to the state you've already claimed internally. This is the difference between those who succeed and those who perpetually wait. The ones who succeed have made a decision. They've chosen their state. They've assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and they refuse to betray that assumption no matter what the world shows them. The world will test you. It will present evidence that contradicts your assumption. It will bring you circumstances that seem to prove you wrong. And in those moments, most people abandon their assumption. They say, see, it's not working. Reality is telling me the truth. But you must understand, reality isn't telling you anything. Reality is only ever confirming what you've been assuming. If you've been wavering, reality will waver. If you've been doubting, reality will give you reasons to doubt. The outer world is the perfect mirror of your inner assumptions. So when the test comes, and it will come, you don't react to it. You don't let it move you from your state. You recognize it for what it is, the old harvest, the fruit of yesterday's assumptions. And you remain faithful to the new seed you've planted, the new assumption you've chosen. You say to yourself, this appearance means nothing. I know who I am. I know what is true. And what is true is the state I have claimed, not the shadow that passes before my eyes. This is persistence, not forcing, not struggling, not fighting, but remaining. Remaining in the feeling, remaining in the assumption. Remaining in the state of the wish fulfilled, regardless of what appears.